The Curse of Bigfoot opens up like several Bigfoot films from the era. Ominous music with a creepy narration. This gives you some hope that this might just actually be a good flick.
The earliest man-like creature walked the earth. Not human, more beast than man. A monster of evolution. Primitive man would find his life threatened, terrified by the appearance of a monster from the past.
They squashed anything they had going for this movie right from the beginning. Usually, I like to see the creature and get a nice good look to get things started. But there is nothing good about this guy. It looks like they glued hair onto someone and made him run at the camera. This is probably the most famous scene from this movie. That is, if someone is unlucky enough to see it. This image is the first thing they think of. Let me tell you, that is not a good first impression. Some scenes are like a documentary. They try to make you feel like this really happened. It doesn't work. It's present day. We see something lurking in the woods, and this looks nothing like the Bigfoot from the beginning of the film. This looks awful, like they didn't even try. They love it. They show this creature all the time. It's like they're proud of it.
Andy, will you get the lights, please?
Oh, it's this old gag. A movie within a movie.
You started at the best part.
Well, you get the idea. Now, these horror films of the 50s seem corny today, just as unbelievable as the ancient sea monsters we've been studying. But don't get the idea that monsters are a thing of the past. All of you have seen recent films about the devil and demon possessions. Even the film about the great white shark was a monster story of sorts. A modern-day sea monster. These films managed to give all of us a few genuine moments of fear.
What kind of school is this? I would love to go there. Their teacher tells the story of Eric Stapleton, how he was the first to photograph giant footprints in the Himalayas.
This man was a professional photographer, as well as an educated scientific investigator and mountaineer. The giant footprints in the snow, photographed by Stapleton, were published by newspapers around the world.
Eventually, these stories of Bigfoot spread across the whole world, and when loggers started gutting forests, they had their own sightings.
Man was invading Bigfoot's domain, moving into the virgin forests, cutting trees, taking over what had always been the hiding place for these mysterious monsters.
This is where the film could have shined. The teacher telling Bigfoot stories. Short, scary stories. Make the movie a little bit more like a Bigfoot anthology film, but unfortunately, they didn't do that. They instead tell long, drawn-out stories where nothing happens. Like the case where two men were out hunting, and they supposedly had a face-to-face encounter with the beast. Nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. Guys looking around, guys walking in the woods. This is a good movie to watch with your phone close by, watch a scene, check your phone. You won't miss anything, and you'll still be entertained. 5 minutes. 5 minutes of precious 32mm film of guys walking in the woods. When something might just happen, it cuts back to the classroom.
Expect us to believe all of this?
Finally, a student asks probably the most important question in the film.
Thomas, Shakespeare once said, through Hamlet, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy."
So, yes, the class is expected to believe all of this as fact.
But let me start at the beginning of my story.
Mr. Mason, a guest speaker, came to tell the class about his encounter with Bigfoot.
Archaeologists are highly skilled, specialized scientists. They know where to look, what to look for, and occasionally they make a discovery of tremendous importance.
This is the main story, and again, it feels like a documentary at times. Mr. Mason, Dr. Bill Weinman, and some students are helping on an archaeological dig, looking for Native American artifacts.
5 high school students and their teacher met with Dr. Bill Wyman, curator of the Lincoln County Museum, an outstanding archaeologist.
Footage from this story is noticeably older, and the teacher looks younger. I do believe that it was recorded first, which works out as this takes place in the past. When we see the teacher present day, he really is that much older. During lunch, a student finds an old-looking rock, which we learn is an ancient tool. The group decides to climb up to where it fell from and see if they can see anything else.
Say, Bill, take a look at this rock that Norman found.
Where did you find this?
Over there where you showed us those Indian writings.
What's wrong with it?
Nothing's wrong. This might be an eolith.
What's that?
A very, very old tool.
Once they get to the top, they do find an odd tablet with strange markings made by cavemen on it.
Stone tablet of some kind. Really something. Yeah, but what?
They pull it up and find that it was concealing a cave.
Ready now? 1, 2, 3, 4!
You're probably thinking, what does this have to do with Bigfoot? Well, I'm wondering the same thing.
Well, it looks like it might be a cave.
What are you doing?
I'm going down inside.
So am I.
Me too.
I think at this point, they would have called in more professionals to help them excavate the cave. But not them. They just dived right in.
Wait for a minute now. Let your eyes get accustomed to the darkness. What? Look, pottery.
These are perfectly preserved.
Once inside the cave, the team finds old pottery and a well-lit, for being such a dark cave, mummy, covered in mud.
Boy, I'm glad that's over with.
Something tells me Bob doesn't think much of our new passenger.
Well, it's the first time I've ever ridden with a mummy.
They are somehow able to get the mummy out of the cave, down the rocks, and into the back of a truck, where they all ride back into town.
I can't get over how well preserved this is. Perfectly preserved.
And I think I know why.
They discuss how the mummy is so well preserved, and then one of the students sees the mummy's hand move.
Do you remember the vapor that shot up out of the hole when we pried the stone tablet loose?
Do I? I'll say.
I thought we'd had it right then.
I believe that some ancient tribe buried this mummy, not just thousands of years ago, but hundreds of thousands. They were very primitive. Their writings and pottery work show that. And yet these people had found the secret of truly preserving the dead. But how? They combined certain amounts of various woods and resins that were present on the earth at that time. They put them in those earthen vessels we found and burned them in a sealed cave. The smoke and the incense had the power of preserving whatever was in the cave.
So that's why the jars we found were filled with ashes.
That vapor that escaped from the cave was a preservative smoke, hundreds of thousands of years old.
Well, that's my theory. I could very easily be wrong, though.
Hey, it moved.
What moved?
The mummy moved.
Sure.
It did. It moved its hand.
Looks like your story got through to Norman.
Some kids decide to go into town, while others stay behind. The one who does stay behind goes to check in on the mummy, only to find that it is alive. It gets up, I think, and begins its reign of terror. The mummy, which was a Bigfoot mummy, is now in an orchard terrorizing the students.
Boy, sure is a nice sky. The moon's so bright, you don't even need a flashlight.
I love the country at night.
Night? There's an awful lot of daylight for it to be night.
Boy, there's not much light in here.
If we stay on the path, we'll be okay.
Yeah, if we can see it well enough. Something's coming.
Let's get out of here.
It's the next day. Or maybe it's still night. You never really know with this movie. They decide to call the sheriff, and he comes out to take a look.
Hello, Bill.
Walt, it's good to see you, especially now.
I just came from the Mitchell Ranch.
Walt, this is Roger Mason, a teacher at the high school.
How do you do? How are you, Mason?
And this is Johnny, one of his students.
Hi, Sheriff.
Hello, Tony.
We were up digging at the Indian site yesterday, and that's where we discovered the cave and the mummy.
Bill, of all the weird stories I've heard, this is the strangest.
They all come up with a plan. Someone will act as bait to lure out the creature. Then they will all communicate back to the group, who will douse the creature with gasoline and light it on fire. There's no talk of trying to preserve this 100,000-year-old discovery. They just jump straight to killing it.
You push this button down to top and let it up to receive. That way you'll be able to communicate with the telephone in my car. Good.
See, Walt, you take your car and station yourself on the road down here.
Just a minute. Who's going into the grove with the bait?
I thought I would. Why you? I was going to do that part. Well, it's my idea.
Finally, the creature attacks, and everything goes to plan. And that's it. No final scene in the classroom, no ending narration, just the creature in flames, and the end. Not even end credits. So, some final thoughts on the movie. First, the positive. The opening is creepy, and if you're in the mood for a Native American history documentary, well, that's a positive. But really, it's an hour-and-a-half movie that should have been a 20-minute TV show. Too much filler, and not enough Bigfoot. Watch it only if you have something else going on to keep you entertained during the boring parts. I give it 1.5 out of 4 mummy Bigfoots.